Okay, it's not been 5 minutes, but we're just going to get started now because I'm ready early for once. So, how's everybody doing? Let me know as long as everything is working, like sounds okay, you can see me, all that good stuff. Let me know by using the chat. And let's say hello to everybody's here today because it's been a long weekend. I had a pre recorded Noni Madueke video that went out on Saturday. Some people didn't like that one, but that's just my sort of true feelings about the Noni Madueke deal. Now I feel about it, but yeah, it's it's one of those it's one of those weekends. I had a long weekend. I'm very tired since literally Friday night. Barely slept at all, trying to stay up for that Chelsea game, and then I've been away for the weekend. So very long, but I've had a big sleep overnight for this one. So we're going to talk about today. We're going to speak about a few different things. We're going to speak about the system that we used against Palmeiras. We're going to speak about a few different things in that game that I liked, and why I think that I've been waiting for this sort of thing to be used again, because I do think this is the most likely to be like the biggest evolution of Chelsea next season, and the tactics that we use is something that we saw in this game, and it's something that I've sort of been mentioning throughout the year, for how Chelsea and Maresca are going to set up. So we're going to speak about that today. Then we're going to obviously move into the how we could set up against Fluminense. I've got a few pictures to show you of how Fluminense press and how we can sort of look to why I think we might play in a similar fashion as we did against Palmeiras, against Fluminense, and how that sort of translates. We're going to talk about that. As always, we'll answer all your questions. We'll sort of use this as a normal tactics talk stream, probably going for about an hour. So let's get the first sort of plug out of the way. Please do smash a like on this video and stream, as it really, really does help me out more than you guys will ever realize. We're already at 15 with 19 in the building. So if you guys keep liking the stream, keep giving reminders in the chat if you need to. You guys, this is for as much for you guys as it is for me in terms of trying to keep this community growing and becoming something really, really special. So thank you for all the support, and let's go ahead with the stream. James says he's trying to escape any work today by watching the stream, which is fair enough. Just is this actual work or like college or like work, things like that, or is it like work? Sean saying stuff AB says, so I'm not actually sure who that is, but said Delap and João Pedro are two small XG generators, and Delap is an outside the box player. João Pedro isn't really an XG generator by himself, I'd agree. I think Delap is, and I think he will get much higher XG generation numbers this season. I don't think he's an outside the box player. I understand why he maybe thinks that because of what he did last season at Ipswich, but I think that's without sort of projecting what they're going to become. So Delap doesn't worry me. I do think Jackson is more of an XG generator for us, which is why sort of I've been saying that if you're going to get rid of Jackson, an TK would be nice to have. So that's something to sort of take. Yeah, I know Cole was out. This is for last game, Daniel. This is the team that played against Palmeiras. So yeah, I don't fully agree with that. I don't know who that is that said that. So like, there's probably some good points in there. Like I say, I'm just going off of what you put there in the chat. But yeah, we're going to speak about James because I think he'll be back in the team for this one. No update on Lavia yet. There's the conference is tonight. What are we basing Delap being able to generate XG on? Basically, like I said, we're projecting him coming from an Ipswich side who played the majority of their football outside the box and in transition, where XG is tallied to much less with how much of the ball they had and how the chances that they created. Whereas in a Chelsea team where he's got the build to generate chances that sort of half chances that others maybe wouldn't get. Again, that box presence that we're projecting him to have with that ability in the air that isn't sort of untapped at the minute. That's not to say that it's 100% guarantee, but I would put more money that his XG numbers go up quite significantly this season than don't. That's what I'm basing it off of, and that's how most sort of analysts and sort of scouting networks will be basing Delap's sort of metrics on. It won't just be based on what he did last season at Ipswich, because you've got to try and scale all of that to possession, chances, like how things sort of work. By the way, what's good is here. I think I skipped past that one. James actually work in a lab, but it's getting near to the end of the day, so it's all right. Oh, nice. Who would you prefer? Who would your preference be for the left? On the right, even if Noni goes. Yeah, I think we're okay on the left, on the right if Noni goes, because I think, again, with Quenda coming in, we'll speak about that at one point in the video. In the stream, we're gonna talk about that left-hand side, maybe in the middle section, sort of in between the two, like big sections that I've got planned for the video, the stream. I keep saying video. Got a feeling Jackson gets sold as João Pedro covers that position. Yes. This is genuinely what I think. This is what so I was away. I was on a stag do this weekend. And I've actually said this to a few of my mates now. I think this could be the plan. I think the plan could actually be that if Madueke and Jackson are sold, then Rodrigo is the guy that they look at. And I'm not saying it happens. It's still a long shot. And it is, of course, like the dream in terms of what a lot of fans would want. But yeah, let's see what happens. We'll talk about that in the middle of the stream because I've got a few ideas on that. Makes sense. I'll opt for the Delap thing. Thought that was a weird take given the eye test. Yeah, like I said, I don't know what he said, but I think the eye test showed. I think it's more his stature and the fact that he's willing to sort of thrive through chaos. Doesn't that just blow up the wage scale? Let's see what the sort of numbers are. I think if it was around 200k for getting Champions League football, and like if you're then bumping like the other guys up slowly towards that, because I think they get a raise because of getting Champions League football. So I'm not too sure on the scalings of it all. So let's see what the number is and if it would sort of be viable. But supposedly there's this like superstar hedge fund, isn't there? So let's see. Who would you like as a backup left back, or what type of profile? I'd love Gerald Hato. I love Ishe Samuel Smith, but I think he's going to go on loan. So yeah, no Kepa gone, and Kunku probably gone, and a few others. What's that for? Azir? Have I missed something? Or do you mean to do with the wage structure? Because I have a feeling by the wage structure he means like the individuals. So like Rodrigo would instantly become the highest paid player at the club, or maybe he'd be below Reece still actually, because Reece is 250, I think, isn't he? Big up, Icy. Yeah, about the wage. What would you give Chelsea transfer window? I'll give it a 7 out of 10 so far. Only a 10 if you get a new number one goalkeeper. I still don't think that would even be a 10 if we get a number one goalkeeper, because again, outgoings is a massive part of that as well. So far, with only Delap and Gittins, for me, it's like a 6, because I like Delap was one that I think we really needed, and Gittins is one that I love, like in terms of how he fits the system. Let's see what the outgoings do. Let's see what like if Noni is sold for me at 40 million, I think that's really poor. I don't like it at all. I think the risk reward, like I said, if you haven't watched that video, by the way, I would suggest going and watching it because it's not a very long video, and it kind of puts into perspective why I think it's the wrong move to sell him at that price. And I sort of go into what price would be viable for Noni based on the metrics that he's had last season and the scalability of what he could do next. So I would suggest going and watching that video if you haven't already. It's not performed very well. Usually videos that go against the grain don't do very well for me, because I think a lot of people come to me to sort of, I don't know whether it's to boost their sort of how they feel about a certain thing. Like they want to hear good things. So like with transfers, I'll try and give you like the positives first before I give any negatives. So I think that's why some things do better than others. But with Madueke, a lot of people sort of don't hear it and don't want to hear it. So that video is not done as good as I thought it would. But I would recommend you checking it out. A lot of people saying about Jackson. Well, Jackson needs to be sold instantly after that. Jackson doesn't need to be sold. So yeah, that's an interesting one that we need to talk about. I think it's going to be interesting who starts against Fluminense, because that will tell us a lot. If you're working to suppress the wages, then having an income and blow everyone else out the water. Yeah, exactly. That's what I did think that was what you meant. Don't see us selling Jackson though. We've got hella games next year, and I think João fits in perfectly as the left 10-8. I do agree with that, but in the middle, like, let's get into the first section of the video or this stream, because in the middle we'll go a little bit more into the sort of how the squad building's working, and then we'll end up. Big up the legends. We're going in for Kudus, but we must sell Noni is going. Jackson stays, according to my trusted sources. For me, as I said in the squad building video we did not too long ago, if we sell Madueke, bring in Kudus, and keep Jackson, I just think we have a massive issue next season in terms of an overhaul. And all it would mean is you're probably going to have to sell Jackson in a year's time anyway to sort of fund that and then move a few players across. Like the video, lads. Confirmation bias is why it doesn't do well normally. Let's go, Kalius. Thank you again for the support. Thank you for the support. 60 million, by the way, Stefan. And I think that is an okay risk to take. If you sell him for 60, I am less aggrieved about it. I still think he could definitely blow up and it could end up as egg on our faces. But at 60 million, it's something that I'm okay with. 40 million, I think, is absolutely just nowhere near the sort of risk reward that I'm looking for. Thank you very much, Rich Moneymakers. Anybody that sort of helps to share and like get the channel out there to as many people as possible, I do really, really appreciate it. Because, like I say, every little like, every little bit of support that I get on the channel, it really does help to sort of bring things forward. He will blow up, but it's worth the gamble. At 60 million, I agree. Not to be too demanding, but you did miss my comment. Sorry about that, Stella. Where is it? Here. Sorry about that. Controversial opinion. I think we shouldn't sign another forward. Keep Jackson, KDH as 7 and 8 attackers this year. Then Pies and Kenda have room in the squad next year. I hear it. I do hear it. And like I say, in the middle of the video, we'll put the boxes out in attack and we'll sort of speak about. Thank you, Rich Moneymakers. That means a lot. But yeah, we'll speak about sort of the squad building. Right, let's get into this first part of the video because I want to sort of speak about the new system. It's not even a new system, but it's like how we sort of saw the system and how a lot of people sort of perceived it. So I think Enzo Maresca is going to evolve this Chelsea team next season by sort of bringing in new fundamentals and new coaching details that we didn't see as much last season. We did a little bit, but it's something that makes the likes of PSG really stand out. And it's that sort of positional fluidity in the middle of the park. If we were to just put sort of a box around this area, it's how you can drag teams around using your sort of depth and height of the team. Now, to be able to do this, I think it is important, and I've been working on something which I hopefully will release out there for like a massive read sooner or later. But I've been working on something called midfield extension theory, which is basically the usage of fullbacks and how I think that fullbacks and midfielders are the most important profiles to have a mixture of them, to be able to sort of operate in lots of different ways in this middle of the park. So obviously for Chelsea, you've got Cucurella, you've got Reece James, you've got Gusto, you've got Achempong, of course, as well. But as the midfielders, you've got Enzo, Santos, Casado, Asugo, Palmer, who can play as the 10, Lavia. You've got loads of different options. Look at PSG, for example. You have Vitinha, Ruiz, and Neves, who can all operate at deep sort of heights. They can operate in this sort of Santos role. They can also move into these half spaces. They can cover in these half space, like sort of defensive channels as well, if they need to. And they can all move around really well because they can operate in different zones. Same goes for the fullbacks. We have Nuno Mendes, who will predominantly offer that sort of left centre-back positioning on the ball, and then he can sort of drift up into these spaces. But again, for Portugal and even for PSG, he can operate in this half space. He can hold the width. He can even come inside and sort of tick things over in the midfield if he needs to. So you've got players that can operate at different heights is a key one, and different heights and depths and different zones. So how does this work for Chelsea? Now, last game, we sort of saw this 3-1-3, which again, it's a bit of a diamond, right? But as we did last season, the tip of the diamond, if it was to be a stereotypical diamond, would be Palmer higher than Gusto and Enzo. But instead, what you've got is that 3-1-3, which again, you've got the two wingers out wide. So it's more of a 3-1-6 overall with the centre forward as well. And you've got this solo pivot. Now, what this does is this is sort of your anchor. This is your base layer of sort of defence. You're always going to have that 3-1 base. Always when you're building up, you've got the two wide centre-backs, you've got the sort of Cole in the middle, and then you've got whoever you've got in the centre of the park. So your anchor in this sense is Santos. In another game, it could be Casado, for example. However, what you then get is the ability to create a +1. So having this 3-1 base can become a 3-2, but with different personnel dropping in. So if Enzo drops in here to create a 3-2, Palmer can drift over to this left side a little bit. Gusto can stay in there, and you're starting to shift the defense around because then somebody's got to follow Enzo into here. If that's the player that is on him on that sort of left-hand side, then like I say, Palmer's going to drift in and find that space behind where Enzo once was. So it's all about creating those little fluid movements. And this is why this season, I think we're going to see so much more of that from Enzo Maresca, because last season it was a little bit more rigid due to sort of trying to get the fundamental principles into this team. Same as it was for Luis Enrique at PSG in his first season. It was nowhere near as fluid. Again, a few of the players and profiles he had didn't help that. They've got a lot more hard-working players who are willing to track back and cover if they're caught on the ball. Because I think something that's really important is when you're going to be a bit more fluid with your movement, you can't just use the responsibilities on the ball. If Enzo drops into this sort of hole to get on the ball and the ball is lost, he then has the defensive responsibility of being in that double pivot. Same as Cole Palmer. If Cole Palmer's the one dropping in here alongside Santos to create a two-man pivot of Santos and Palmer, if that ball is lost, Palmer has to defend that has to be his role. he has to do the defensive part of that responsibility as well. If Palmer's dropped in and that ball's lost and Enzo and Gusto are pushed on, Palmer has to do his bit defensively to defend with that sort of rest defense of a 3-2, because otherwise there's nobody else there to do it. So that's what's extremely key about this, is not just the on-ball sort of responsibilities, but also the off-ball responsibilities. And again, like I say, this could be for anyone. So what you often see with PSG is Vitinha is usually that one sort of hovering as that number one in the middle, and he's the one sort of getting on the ball and making things tick. But if Neves does drop in, he does have the license to sort of spin in and go a little bit higher up. And you can see how that would work with Chelsea, with, say, Enzo dropping in or Casado being there, and lots of different movements. Against Crystal Palace, there was points last season where we did it once, where Palmer was the one dropping in. And at times, people were moaning because it looked like Palmer was the solo pivot against Crystal Palace, and everybody hated it. But again, it gives you those sort of like little fluid rotations, and it creates space and openings elsewhere on the pitch. So that's something really important to keep an eye on when it comes to this. And like I say, this isn't just going to be like we always play a 3-1-3. If this is a 3-2, the idea would be the same. Within that 2, can you add a +1? Can Enzo drop in like he did last season to create a 3-3-4? Can you then have one of your other pivot players like Casado push a little bit higher? So you're still in a 3-2-5, but you almost swap the roles of the holding players and the pocket players. And it's these little movements that create sort of openings in the defence. And that's not just for midfielders, that's also for the fullbacks. So on this occasion, yes, Chalobah's not a fullback, he's playing as a right centre-back. But as you can see, he drives into that space, which is often opens up, especially against teams who press with 2 in the middle, because there's always going to be a free man. And usually if you can get the ball to that free man, the wide centre-back, they have space to drive into, as Chalobah does here, creating more of a 2-3 base. And again, with this, you've got Gusto pushed extremely high. You've got Palmer, who's ready to receive between the lines. And it almost allows, just again, to pull those players apart. Because if somebody's going to have to jump out to press a Chalobah, there's going to be space in here to exploit. And this actually leads to Cole Palmer receiving on the half turn, Galat making a clever dummy run, Palmer putting it in the back of the net, and Chelsea, happy days, go 1-0 up. So that's what I wanted to speak about in terms of how I think this system could work. Well, not even system, like I say, it's more about adding those more fluid principles into Chelsea's team. And this could work with so many different so many different levels of personnel, because you have your 1 in here, your 3 in here, but then you also have someone like Cucurella who can operate at so many different areas. He can operate in this number 10 area. He can operate inverted into the middle of the park. He can provide width if you need him to. He can provide sort of that left centre-back, wide centre-back role. The same goes for Reece James. He can operate in all these roles. So I do think that's something Maresca is trying to add. Players who can replace each other in zones, but also have the, as I said earlier, the defensive responsibility to carry out that role, which is why somebody like João Pedro could be key this season, because as I said in the João Pedro video, where Nkunku and Felix maybe didn't have the same sort of buy-in to do the defensive part of the role, let's say Nkunku, which he actually did the other day, to give him his credit, Nkunku worked very hard in this game against against Palmeiras. He did work hard. But if he's caught in this area here and everybody else is pushed on, for example, I don't think Maresca trusted that you'd get the full sort of work rate from an Nkunku or Felix in this area when you're sort of, again, in that deep block of 5. Whereas João Pedro maybe would give you a little bit more of that. So I do think that's quite a big factor as to why João Pedro could have been brought in and why it could be sort of key. But what do you guys think of this sort of system, how it could work for Chelsea? Do you think that we're trying to bring in more players who can move across zones? Even if they start in one position, they can move across zones and fulfill the responsibilities on ball and off ball of whichever zone they're in? Because I do think that's a huge, huge part of how Chelsea are trying to evolve this team and have a little bit more fluidity in their sort of rigid structure. So what do you guys think? Let me know. Let me know now. Let's break it back to the chat. Sorry, when I do those little sections, I try to sort of keep it on a flow. So I'll now try and go through the chat again. Where are we? Where did I last speak about? Do you see João Pedro at left wing possible? Yeah, it's possible for sure. Do I think it? We're going to speak about this bit next, about like how the sort of squad build could work, but I'm not too sure. By the way, put your this is how we played last game. Prem Talk. It's not an obsession. This is just a fact. This is literally the team that played against Palmeiras. This isn't my team. This is the team that played. Maresca picked this. There's no obsession. That's just what happened. Not sure how else to sort of do that. Keep up the good work. Let's go. Thank you very much, Mansa. We actually in for Kudus. I have no idea. You forgot to change. What did I forget to change? Kalius, what did I forget to change? Yeah, it was really good from Trev for Palmer's goal. The entry pass was excellent. Could we see this versus 4-4-2s? The 3-1-6, maybe not. That's why I sort of mentioned the allowing sort of, if it was, let's say, a 3-2, like the usual shape, you'd actually then see the movements a little bit more like this. This guy, oh, that's not narrow. This guy dropping in, this guy shuffle, this guy move on. So you've got that fluid rotation still, because if he drops in, that's the trigger for him to move over and him to push forward. And you're still creating that box. But as you can see, you've then sort of shifted the movements that has happened. So yeah, Kalius, big up. He's always the one. And Bruce G as well, like the stream guys. Big up to you guys. I really appreciate it when you're the ones sort of like pushing it in the chat. Saves me to keep having to go back to it. But let's have a little look. So we're on 43 already. We've got 67 in the building. If we can get to 50 before we've even done like 25 minutes of this stream, that would be brilliant. So please smash the like button if you haven't already. We've got 69 people in here. 7 more likes needed at a minimum. Please do smash that. Is Osman not the right profile for Chelsea? He absolutely is. Maybe not as much now that we've signed the lap, because I would have signed. But Osman, he would have been like the number one striker signing for me. Absolutely. We're at 44 likes. Let's keep pushing it. Thanks for the update, Daniel. Let's keep pushing that. Let's get to 50. Will we sign a proper overlapping fullback? And who do you think we should sign? See, this is kind of links back to what I just spoke about. I don't think we're ever, well, not ever, I don't think we're going to sign somebody who is an out and out overlapping fullback by trade who can't play in other positions. Because like I just said, I think the flexibility of having players that can operate in so many different zones is going to be key for Enzo Maresca in the future. So when it comes to sort of a fullback, that's why I think Jarell Hato is really, really important, because it would be really good, because he can not only play as the left centre back, he can overlap. He's not an overlapping fullback by trade, but he has the ability and the athleticism to overlap. He can also invert, and he can be in the middle of the park. So he's got so many sort of strings to his bow. And yeah, that's true from BMO. There's not so many overlapping fullbacks by trade that are out there now anyway. Maxim de Kuiper is a really good one that's just gone to Brighton. I think he's going to smash it. But I do think we're looking for sort of flexibility. And Ishe is that type as well, a bit like Joshua Chempong, very hybridy, centre-back, full-back sort of hybrid. Yeah. What's up, Zach? Big up to Zach. He's always here. He's always here chilling. Agree. Yes, agree, Connor. Also notice 3-man, 1-touch passing to beat the press. Yep. And again, with the rotations, you get the value from that. So for sure, good shout. Why do you keep insisting on Chalobah? Like I literally just said, this isn't my team. This was the exact team Maresca picked. Maresca factually picked Chalobah against Palmeiras. No, Zach, we're going to do that in a minute. We're going to do... So we just did a little bit of a chat about the last game and why I think the tactics could be important next season. And I'm going to upload that as a video later on as well with a few different edits, because I do think that's going to be the next evolution of Maresca's system next season. And yes, City do play 3-1-6 quite often. I think they're quite confident on the ball to like push one man on, whereas maybe Maresca hadn't had that same level of confidence in the sort of back line to deal with it yet. But obviously you can do it against a 4-4-2 mid block for sure. Can Jackson and Zhao play together? No reason they couldn't, but I think it would be more likely to see one of them with the lap, because then you've got a little bit more of a mixture of profiles. Let's do the squad building part of this episode, because a lot of people sort of wondering my thoughts about sort of Madueke going and how that could work. Let's go. Oh, we haven't got Esteval. Let's do Esteval. We've got Esteval in there. We've got Palmer, of course. We've got Enzo in that position. We've got Delap here, and we've also got, for now, we've got Jackson. For now, we've got Madueke, Gittins as well. Don't even have Gittins. Has Gittins' number been said yet? I can't remember if it has or hasn't. So Gittins there. George there. Who else am I missing? I mean, Santos, technically, they want us to sort of believe that that's his role, don't they? I'm just moving a few bits about. Is that missing anyone? Not including Kenda? 43, yeah. Yeah, let's put it as 43 because that's what it was at Dortmund. Like, but I know we haven't actually missing Pedro. No, he's here. Yeah, good shout. Let's put him here for now, even though I don't think that's where he's going to play, but I'm just going to put him there for the box, okay? Like, just as a number 10, even though I think he's more likely to be sort of a bit of everything. Let's start like this. Oh, KDH, good shout. KDH will put in sort of with Enzo. Let's put João Pedro here because I think it's more likely, right? And now let's do what I think are the obvious moves that are going to happen. I think George goes on loan. I think Nkunku leaves. And then I think Madueke leaves. Lavia's up here. So I'm just like, this is just for the attack, this little section. So we've got Palmer. And the reason I think Palmer's okay to sort of leave in this box on his own is because you've got players who can cover him in so many different areas. I mean, you could say KDH is the cover, but you could also say Esteval is the cover. You could also say João Pedro is the cover. So I think for Palmer, you don't need to buy another number 10. So we're going to keep it like that. Same with Enzo and Santos. I think they sort of like they're fine in that role. You could even say that they're not really part of the attack. They're the second part of the pivot, but then obviously on the ball, they push forward. So Asugo, yeah, he's also here. But again, we're not talking about deeper midfield players. So instantly, what I will say is Madueke leaving, for me, doesn't mean you have to go and replace him because you've got Esteban Neto and you've got Kenda coming in, which is really important. I'm going to just put him in like green. Because I think this is a massive reason as to why I think you've got to be careful for how we sort of use this. And everybody's saying about Kudus, we're going to get to it now. Now, if you sign Kudus, with this being the current landscape, let's say Madueke goes and you sign Kudus. Now what you've got, we'll do Kudus in yellow. Now what you've got is Kudus in here on the left, on the right. Yes, he can be the number 10 backup as well. Yes, he can play on the left. So he can play across a lot of different positions. But you've now got 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. 11 forwards in this sort of area. Okay. Also, to add Kenda in 2026, who's so talented, which will give you 12 players. You've now got 4 who prefer to be on the right, left footers. And yes, Kudus, they have said that he probably isn't going to come because he wants Spurs. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Yes, I think Kudus is a brilliant player. And I think he'd really add a lot this season. Beyond that, though, I just don't think it's clever when you know you've got Kenda, who's going to need minutes to develop properly because he's already developing really, really well. And he can play both sides again. And Esteval can like fill in the middle. But I just think that's more than enough for that right-hand side sort of contingency, especially when you consider Palmer can play there too. Now, where Kudus would have made a little bit more sense is if you didn't only sell Madueke, but you also sold Nicholas Jackson. Because at that point, Kenda's not here yet. You then move João Pedro into this role. Again, he can play this, he can play this, he can play this, but he could be sort of seen as that secondary striker who can play other positions. Then you bring in Kudus, and I'm not saying he'd play on the left, but you bring in another winger. And yes, you now have 3 left-footed wingers and 1 right-footed winger, but you've got players who can play across lots of different zones. And you've now got, again, you've narrowed that number down. Then when Kenda joins, your number isn't too big. You could maybe move on KDH, and you've got a little bit more sort of leniency to have 2 in each position. All of a sudden, that looks way cleaner in attack. Of course, then you also have Paez coming in, who would be very much the Palmer backup as well. So you'd have, oh yeah, Prem Talks just said it as well. So let's put Paez in here as well. and let's just say KDH has been moved away. Okay, so again, this is still not as bad as it could have been. Even so, maybe again with George coming back, then maybe you've got to make a decision on George as well. But it's not as bad as it would have been in terms of a clog up on one side of the pitch with all four of these players in the same area. And again, though, it still gives you a lot of left footers, so that's not high on my list. Now, what would make even more sense is if this wasn't Kudus, who's a left footer, but it was, and yes, this is dreaming, but it was Rodrigo. Now, all of a sudden, this makes ridiculous amounts of sense. Because this would be how it looks for the season. 2-2-2-2 everywhere. 2 players in each position. Different profiles. More inside profiles. More outside crossing first and shot first profiles. Different types of strikers. Different types of pocket players. It would make so much sense. Then, it doesn't even cause an upset next year. Because, as I say, you can move things over. Kenda can sort of can come in here. KDH can be moved on. Pyers can come in here. Again, you can have Esteval going between the two. You can have Pyers playing in multiple different roles, like even playing as the Enzo backup at times if Santos has been moved back. You can move things so much around, and it doesn't cause anywhere near as much of a logjam as it would having a left footer on the right with Selim Madueke. So that's where I'm at for the squad building side of things. Who would be your ideal replacement? Let's say Madueke replacement in quotation marks, but who would be your ideal sort of if you were to sign one more forward? Who would it be? Would it be Kudus and you just don't care about the logjam? Would it be a right footer because it just makes more sense for the squad? Would it even be a striker? And would it be that sort of this remains your left hand side and you bring in say Ekitike? Would that be what you want to do? Let me know in the chat below now. I'm going to get rid of the players that aren't ours here, because I'm now going to get set up to speak about the, what do we call it? Can't even remember what I was going to say now. The next game. João Pedro, Ekitike, sorry, João Pedro. Bakwa. You said Javi Simmons. I just think that's too much of a 10. Like, I get it. I don't hate it. I prefer Yildiz, if anything, for that. João Pedro will predominantly start on the left. I think so too. I do think so too. But it all depends on who leaves as well. Hi, Connor. Getting more into tactical analysis because of you. Could you demonstrate and explain the major differences between Maresca's tactics and those of Pochettino's? Watching Americans team hurt. Maybe I'll do it in a more in depth in a video. But I think one of the main things to look at is the tempo and how they control the tempo. That's one of the biggest differences. Poch wanted to push the tempo at all times and be high, which would then mean that they'd become much more of a drift because the attackers are trying to attack and the defenders are trying to defend. And where it goes back, forth, like a basketball game, you then end up with this sort of huge gap in the middle where players are sort of struggling to cover the ground. And that's where teams can hurt you against a team that are a bit more chaotic with Pochettino. Whereas with Maresca, what you try to do is move things up progressively and with a slower tempo, because then what it means is eventually everybody is sort of squeezed into a tighter sort of contingency, and it's much harder to find any space between the lines because the distances are much sort of less. Okay, that would be my main thing to speak about with it. Maybe I'll do another video to speak about a few of the other intricacies, but yeah, I've got a few videos from last season that you can probably go watch about how Pochettino's tactics and sort of draw from those to see what's different. I agree with that, by the way, Stefan. That's kind of why I was fine with keeping Madueke this season and selling him next season, because for me, Kenda is, you're right, he is a perfect Noni replacement. I agree. Fafana from Lyon's very good. I wouldn't hate it at all. I just think having him and Gittins on the left, I think they're both kind of undercooked, and it would be a little bit much to sort of give them the burden. But if you get a good price for him, it makes more sense to me than Kudus, purely again because of the foot, which foot he is. Kalius again with a shout out, like the video. Let's check what we're on. We're on 56. Let's go. We've got 85 in the building. Can we push that up to 75? If everybody in here likes the video that hasn't liked it already, we'd be well above 75. So let's take a minute, support the channel, drop a like, and keep supporting the channel, because the last few weeks have been nuts. Like, we've earned about 300 subs in a week. I'm aiming for 5k by, really, I was aiming for it by the start of July. So technically, if you want to be we failed. But I think the progression has been so big that hopefully we can hit that 5k in the next few sort of like, maybe in the next week. And then from there, we can try and push that on and try to hit anywhere close to sort of, well, 10k was my goal for the end of the year. And we're now up to 100 people in the stream. So this could be easy to get us to 75 likes. We're going to talk about anybody that's new to the stream, anybody that hasn't been here before. We're going to talk about the sort of how we're going to set up against not Palmeiras, against Fluminense. We're going to speak about that next. We'll do a few more questions because we're at the 38-minute mark. So we'll do about 5 more minutes of questions from the chat, and then we'll speak a little bit about how we're going to set up against Fluminense. That's what we'll do. Yes, we're about to do that. Amaya, I've got a few pictures to sort of show my working out, why I think we'll play a certain way, who would play, etc., etc. Can Jackson and Pedro work in the same lineup? Yes, because Pedro can play on the left, Jackson can play up front, vice versa. I think it'd be more common to see Delap and Pedro or Delap and Jackson. So can Jackson and Pedro work together? Yes, it's possible. Do I think it's more likely, less likely than having Delap? No. Is Rodgers realistic? Probably not, just because of the price. But I'd love Rodgers. I feel like Mamadou Sarr starts with toss in and Reece at right back. We've not seen enough to prove that he'll start. I'd love to see Sarr getting more reps because I think he's a top player. I think the most likely thing is that he goes on loan next season. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Let's see if he gets even. Like, I think pre-season is something we need to watch as well because maybe he'll get more reps in pre-season, really impress, and then go straight in. How best can Osman fit this team? He'd be perfect, but I think that ship has just massively sailed. I've got a video on the channel you can go watch that is literally saying exactly what Osman's the best fit for Chelsea as well. Maresca tried Neto as a left forward, right? Do you think we'd use him more in the Rafinha type role? He did try him in that way. I think whenever he's used Madueke on the left, I think that's been more to use him in that Rafinha type role. I think Neto is more of a creator, and I just think he is best on this side of the pitch. So I think on this left side, you're more likely to see like the more outlet player. So whether that's Gittins or even João Pedro coming in playing a sort of a shadow striker, a bit like Marmouche, you're more likely to see that sort of from one of those. Whereas Pedro, I think, is more likely, or Neto, more likely to play on that right hand side. I think Santos is just so ahead of it though. Prem talk. Like Santos has had he's been one of the best midfielders in Ligue 1 last season. Yeah, 100% Chedon. And again, I thought this was going to happen this season because we were seeing it last season with Gusto. There was points last season where Gusto was starting here, Enzo was here, Palm was here. So that was the box midfield. And we'd seen just towards the end of the season, Maresca started to add little automizations where Gusto would push up, Enzo would drop in, and it would shift, and it would almost create this little area here for Enzo to receive the ball. Gusto would push into that area further forward, and it would almost create like a bit of a lopsided box like this. But Enzo would be in that deeper role where he could sort of knit things together a little bit. And I think that's going to be the next evolution of this team. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not like I say, I really rate Mamadou Sarr. I really do. There's nothing against him. I just don't think he's going to throw him in a semi-final. And I don't think he'd have thrown Santos in a quarter-final if he had the choice. If Caicedo or Lavia were fit, then I just don't think. I think it was more forced. I mean, we even saw he didn't because Reece was going to start in midfield. So he's trying to be careful with it. And Santos was excellent. So don't get me wrong, it worked. But I don't think Maresca's going to sort of make a massive change like that. At least that's what I think. Should we get into what I think the team could be against Fluminense? Should we go into that? As I keep saying, keep liking the stream. We're going to go into a little bit more of a sort of talking section now. So I'll check the chat again after. But we're going to go into a bit more of an analysis section for 10 minutes. So yeah, we'll go from there. And I do agree they'll all be, maybe not all in the squad, because like I said, Sarr may be loaned, but I wouldn't be surprised if all three are in the squad. Definitely not. Right, let's talk about Fluminense. How do they press? Now, when we go into this Fluminense game, I think that we're going to see a similar-ish sort of standard and type of game to what we saw against Palmeiras. I think they're going to press predominantly with 5 going forward, with the traps being set with their back 5 as to when to press. Now, Fluminense, they started their first few games, even against Dortmund, in about 4. But then since then, we've actually seen them against Inter and also against, who was the other game? Was it Inter Miami? No, Al Hilal, both in back 5s. And I think that that's most likely what we're going to see in this game again. The difference to how they press, how Palmeiras press, is Palmeiras pressed a little bit more with a 2 forwards, and then they would create this sort of 3-2 attack, or like not attack, but press, first line of pressure, by having one of their centre mids jump up, and then one of their fullbacks would drop into the back 5. Whereas for Fluminense, they start with more of a back 5. They have the 3 forwards pressing in the front line, and then they have that sort of 2 pivot who can be split in the middle of the park. So if I show you another example here, you've got the 3, you've got the narrow 3-2. You've then got the back 5 players ready to pounce. You've got the wing back ready to go on the winger who's out wide. You've also got one of the central defenders jumping up to mark the space in between that pivot, which is going to be split and dragged apart, which is something we spoke about quite a lot. So as you can see, you got the 3 line of, you got that line of 3. And if I put that on the tactics board, let me go over to the tactics board. Oh, need to remove this from stage. We can sort of put the 3 pressing here. Now, if we used to lock it like this, then you've got 1 for each defender. Now, of course, it doesn't really work like that. And this, they're going to be trying to screen before they press. So in fairness, I think that these 2 players, I don't think you need 2 again. I think much like we did with Andre, I think you're going to need 1 in here, because you instantly there, you've got a 4v3, got the advantage. And if one of these sort of triggers the press, you can find Caicedo between the lines. If they don't, then you've got one of these players are going to have space, because if they're just trying to watch Caicedo, Cole's going to have plenty of time on the ball to try and pick the passes into the pockets, and it's going to give you lots of sort of options. Now, where was we? Because I was about to move. So what I think this means, and we've got to remember, Cole isn't available. So I think tossing playing as that central centre-back is going to be key. Cole out. How we sort of set up the rest of the team will depend. Caicedo, I think, will be in there very well. I mean, I think he will be in there. The rest of the team, though, kind of depends how you're going to sort of formulate the rest of the back line. So you've got Tosin, you've got Cucurella, who are both going to start. Reece James is another one who's apparently fairly fit. Where's Reece? If I put him, where have I put Reece? Oh, he's there. Reece, I think, will start as that sort of right centre back on the ball. So we've got the back 3 intact there, but I think Cucurella, I think that means he'll push up and he'll sort of be playing like this. So I think the 3 will be as follows. So now it depends who do you play as the left centre back. Badiashile apparently left on crutches as well. So possibly, I think we see Chalobah starting as the left-sided centre-back and playing like so, which would give that back 3, this between the lines, and that is basically how our midfield would look. Now, again, you'd have sort of their 2 in here, as we spoke about. And if I draw a little line, that creating that split is going to be key. And having Palmer in the middle of all this will also be key, because 1, can he drop in and sort of affect play like this? But also, can he sort of split this even when this does split with these 2 between the lines, can he receive the ball on the half turn? And vice versa, if one of them refuses to leave Palmer, let's say it's this side because they're sort of more threatened by Enzo than they are Cucurella, then this is going to be a pass that we see a hell of a lot in this game into Cucurella, who can then force, as we saw in this example, one of the centre-backs to jump out. So that's something we're trying to repeat and force with the patterns of play that we're going to be sort of using against Fluminense. One last example, that again, this sort of just shows you've got the centre-backs there, trying to keep that line of 5 sort of in line. But again, there's going to be triggers behind this double pivot that if you can continuously sort of activate those triggers, it's going to cause sort of tension in this back 5 and allow for little runs in behind. So again, you can see that front 3, quite compact. Again, you've got the furthest, the right winger on that left centre-back. So again, you can imagine that being sort of Chalobah in this scenario. And then it's sort of a 4v3 with that first line of pressure. So again, you could even see here, where are we? Could even see Caicedo sort of dropping in here, and it's sort of looking again to try and get on the ball before this line of pressure and sort of create again that, oh, that's not a box, a 4v3 that we just spoke about in that first phase. And then, again, you've got an overload in there as well because you've got 2 versus 3 unless one of the defenders jumps up fully. So, rest of the team, how could it look? If this was the defence, and as I say, this is the pockets, you've then got, so you're going to be a back 5 for Fluminense. The lap is out. No Delap. Neto almost definitely starts on the right. So I think we lock that in. Neto on the right. Who plays up front and who plays on the left is going to be very dependent. Now, if Palmer is going to play as his normal number 10, that sort of locks off he's not going to be on that left-hand side. So, do we see Jackson and João Pedro? Is that a chance that we see that? Do we see Nkunku on the left again? Because, again, he played last game. Do we see João Pedro starting up front instead of Jackson? Because I think that was very telling, and that's something I'm really excited to see about this game. Who starts up front is going to be really, really interesting, because Jackson didn't come off the bench against Palmeiras, which I thought he would. So if João Pedro starts up front and Jackson is benched again, something to think about there, definitely. So what do you guys think we're going to see in terms of the attack? If I was to put money on it, I think that we could see this because of the Jackson thing. I think there's more to it. Now, that's not to say he won't start, because like I say, we have no idea. Maybe Maresca just didn't want to throw him straight back into the limelight, straight after a red card. And maybe he does play this game. I think there's a good chance he does. But Nkunku, he's been working hard. Does he start on the left? And João Pedro, really good cameo. Does he get a chance to start against his former club? I mean, he started off in Brazil. He was with Fluminense. So could this be the team? So now that we've sort of done that sort of section, if this is our team, firstly, score predictions with this as the team. Secondly, what changes would you make? You definitely start João Pedro. He was so good the other day, wasn't he? Rich Money saying, everybody drop a like. It's free and it takes seconds and it helps grow the channel. He is spitting facts right there. So please smash the like button. Do you think Pedro's a false 9 to draw more centre-backs out and the wingers attacking behind? Definitely. Whether it's João Pedro or Jackson, that is going to be key. Because like I said, with sort of how they press, with having these two here, having the ability to not only have like double ups and sort of cause tension within this pocket with Palmer going left or right, you've also then got the option, like you say, of this player dropping into the space and then actually allowing Palmer to be the one to attack him behind, or the wingers, as you said. So definitely, whether it is Pedro or Jackson, I think having a player that will make those movements will be key, as I showed here, to sort of drag that central defender into sort of unwanted territory. Because as well, we saw Thiago Silva the other day. He wasn't happy getting dragged around, or having other players dragged out, which then left him sort of in these wider areas to defend. So dragging their defence around and making them sort of bite in lots of different scenarios, once again, could be a big part of this game. It doesn't move me, but Noni looks like he's leaving. Do you trust to start João Pedro and Jackson in the same game? And like Tyreek Jordan hasn't been starting, so Nkunku started the other day. I thought he worked really hard. So in that sense, I'm willing to go with it again, even though it's not my ideal scenario. You want Jackson to start? Yes, fair. Especially against a team who's going to be very sort of up for it. And someone like Thiago Silva, who will know that he can wind Jackson up. You'd like to see more of Darius Hugo. So would I, but just more like from the bench. I just think this season, I think he's going to be that guy from the bench to help see out games. Coolest Chelsea, let's go. Big up everyone. Big up everyone. Yeah, I hear you on the João Pedro. You don't want to get too hyped on the debut, but he's just so technically efficient. Like I say, it's whether he plays as the striker, in the left half space, off the wing. I think he's just so technically efficient that it's going to be really, really good. Could Noni start on the left? Of course, it's possible, but just with everything that's in the media right now, I just don't think he will. So a few people saying sort of Jackson, Pedro, Neto, Palmer. So yeah, that's fair. So would you have Jackson on the left saying that, Prem Talk? Yeah, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. Call this Chelsea, helping everybody out. We got over 100 people in the building, by the way. Over 100 people, which is huge. Let's drop the let's have a refresh, see what likes we're on. We're on 84 likes. Can we get this to 100 likes? We're at 53 minutes, 104 people. If everybody that hasn't liked drops a like, we'll hit 100. Easy peasy. Yeah, João Pedro's heading. But again, that's why if João Pedro's on the left, Rich Money, he can be the one, like, let's say we did start like this. Jackson can sort of be the almost decoy. And then you've got João Pedro arriving in that space to attack the back post. So that's what I don't hate about it. Jackson can't hack it against a very intelligent Thiago Silva. That's what worries me a little bit. I guess that's where you bench him again because he's got easily wound up. Better bring, yeah, I hear that. This is my lineup via my match preview live stream I did in the last hour. Yeah, drop it in the chat. Call us Chelsea, let me know. Or do you mean the one we've got on screen now? Or are you going to drop which one you have? Any chance we get an Andre Enzo pivot and Caicedo inverted from right back? Probably not, because then you don't start Reece. I think if Reece is fit, you start him. And then Cucurella will be at left back. So I don't think so. Andre was so good the other day, though, so he needs to be getting more minutes. But again, I just think in this sort of game, where you're only going to need one in the pivot, I think maybe Caicedo and Enzo start, and then you look to bring Andre on for Enzo. Jack starts, then Pedro on. Jackson starts, then Pedro on for Nkunku second half. Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. So you'd start like this. Kalius. Can't share the link because I'm not a mod. Can you just, instead of sharing the link, because I won't be able to drag it up now anyway, I'll have to drag it up after, could you just type the team out for me? Call us Chelsea. Jackson is a red card in the waiting. Can you imagine he got 2 in the same tournament? Can you imagine? And again, you just said it as well. Is it because of how Thiago Silva could wind him up? Is that what you think? Yes, I've shared your channel on the Chelsea forum to spread the news on your analysis. I'm a moderator on the chat forum, so more people watching you live. Thank you very much, Wrench Money. I appreciate that a lot. Put Moy right back and put Reece right centre back. Put Tosin left centre back. But then off the ball, it's just like having Reece next to Tosin as the 2 centre backs. I'm not overly happy about that. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, Chris. I would like to see him start against his boyhood club. Stream getting bigger and bigger. Love the support. Connor deserves it. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much. It does mean a lot for me getting the support from you guys. It does. And hearing like nice little comments every time I get a nice comment on my videos, like it really does make my day. So I do really appreciate it. And I'm not just saying it. Absolutely appreciated. We'll probably do another 5 minutes of questions. We're 8 likes away from 100. So if you are still in here and you haven't done that, what are you doing? Let's drop the like and let's get to 100. But let's do 5 more minutes of questions and then we'll sort of wrap up the stream from there. And then I've got to go and edit a few videos from there. Jackson off the left would be better if you start central. Silva will shut him down. So would you do it like this? Would you like to see that? Yeah, he has got a lot more to make up for. And I think the thing is with Jackson's, I think this is what you mean. I think with Jackson, sort of how he, what's the right word? His mentality, I think he's one of those guys that he can try too hard. Like the red card against Newcastle, I generally don't think he would I don't think that was a moment of petulance. What I think that was him almost knowing that he was going to get roughed up in that game. And he's been criticised for not being strong enough. I think he was overly aggressive because that was like how he got himself up for the game and sort of being in a battle. And I think it just went wrong. So especially for that game, I just think it's the mentality. I don't even think it was massively his fault. I think obviously it's his actions, so you have to put them on him. But if that makes any sense, I do think it was just sort of how he sort of reacts and how he is. Chalobah on the left worries me. Yeah, I don't really disagree. I can see why. But like I say, I think with no Badia Shield as well, he would have been ideal to have in this game. I think it's an interesting one. I do. You work very hard doing your analysis on Chelsea and many other teams. Yeah, thank you a lot, Rich Money. I'm trying to grind out and try and push to more fan bases. Chelsea will always be my absolute number one focus, but I want to try and branch out and get as much analysis done as possible because that's what I do for a living anyway. I do freelance sort of analysis for different clubs, different websites and things. I do quite a lot of analysis work, so I'm hoping to just keep it growing. Thank you a lot, Will. Thank you a lot. I appreciate that. Speaking of, because we've got 100 people in here, a lot of people keep asking me about like collabs and stuff, and like who their favorite like Chelsea people are, or even any other. The one thing I would say about that is I would love to, but I think a lot of people need to sort of. I think I need to grow a little bit more so that everybody sort of knows the accountability that I can sort of have and what the value that I can offer. So if there is people that you want to see me sort of do a stream with or do a video with, if you watch their channel, drop a comment in their channel and like see if they'll do a collab. Do you know what I mean? Like if that's something you guys really want to see, and I will reach out to these people. I've reached out to a few of them, but if there's a specific collab that you really want to see with me and a different Chelsea content creator, go and hit it on their channel. I would say that because I think the more sort of people get to know that we're part of the community, then we can sort of grow from there. How many hours do you work a day? Yeah, I mean it's been a long weekend where I had a weekend off from work, so it's all right. But yeah, it is a lot. Like I can never really pin it down on how many I've done, but it's pretty much full on. Like I'll end this, I'll do a load of other sort of videos that I've got to record and edit. Then I've got to write a few sort of like analysis bits. Tomorrow I'll be covering the Chelsea game. Wednesday I'll be covering the Real Madrid game. Thursday I've got another video to do, not for myself, for somebody else. So I've got to do that. Yeah, I hear that, Vinny. I do. That's why tactics talk, I kind of always keep that to just me because I just want it to be like quite fitted to the tactics and like what we want to talk about. So if I was to do sort of collabs on my channel through streams, it would probably get a rebrand and it would be its own separate series because I think tactics talk, I think we've got something really good going with tactics talk. Yeah, exactly, Devon Ash. I love it. I do. Like I keep saying, it's like one of the main things that just gets me, like keeps me sort of really inspired and sort of keeps me pushing because I just enjoy everything I do. Getting up every day to analyze football at the end of the day, and people seem to enjoy it. So that is brilliant. You would crash a gal. Who's a gal? Eunice, Keir Doyle. Yeah, Keir Doyle's brilliant. Eunice, I haven't really watched much of him. I know of him, but yeah. The bad thing with most Chelsea channels, and honestly large part of the fan base, is reactionary tendencies, clickbaiting and raging at horrible directors. Yeah, you were mentioned on Keir Doyle's stream yesterday, was I? In a good way or a bad way, Rayanne? In a good way or a bad way? I maybe have to watch it back and see what was said. Who's your favourite Chelsea player currently? Not the best. Yeah, mine's Enzo as well, Kays. Mine's been Enzo pretty much since he joined. I do think that that's quite heavily influenced by the fact that he's probably most like me as a player. Like if there was one player in this Chelsea squad that has similar like play styles to how I sort of played, it is Enzo. So I think that's a big part of it. The team didn't try too many long balls. You think Carrera said about would work? No, because again, like I know what you're saying. Like if they didn't, but I think that's too much of a hypothetical because I think they just would if he's in there. So no, I don't think it would, and I think he's too aggressive as well. I think he'd leave a lot of space behind him. I think he's better being that sort of third centre back in this era because when he is aggressive, you've still got somebody to cover. Good way. Talking about the other Chelsea streamers, both of you talking about squad structure tactics would be great. Nice, that's good to hear. Yeah, mate, I'll get in touch with Keir. I've spoke to him a bit on Twitter and things. Like I say, he's brilliant. He's good. Yeah, maybe we could because we're quite similar in what we do content wise as well. So maybe that would be one that works. Rich Money. Yeah, I can't really comment because I don't know who that is. But I really appreciate the sort of kind words about me and what I'm doing. So thank you very much for that. Cuckoo tossing Chalo back free in possession. James where Enzo is and Enzo where Cuckoo is. So you just switch it all round and have. Yeah. The only thing is, does he trust James to be higher up? You going 3-1 tomorrow, Will? As much as I love Palmer and Casado, I do think the profiles clash of Enzo being platformed the best he could. If you're talking the absolute optimal, then yeah, perhaps you're right. But I still like it. But yeah, I know what you mean. If you're platforming Enzo to play in that deep line playmaker, there would be better ways of doing it. I agree with that. Why are most Chelsea content creators so negative? Rarely watch them nowadays, especially Rory Jennings. I think a lot of them are just sort of I think it is how they feel. Like, I don't think it's fake. I think it's very much that's sort of how they feel about the club. But yes, it's not my style. It's not my style. Do you think we have what it takes to beat PSG or Madrid? I think we'd have a better chance against Madrid. I'm worried against PSG. I'm very worried because I think if we try to press man for man against PSG with how they rotate in the middle of the park, I think we'll get pulled apart. I do. But we're going to do a big stream on that. If we win on Tuesday, Wednesday content, Thursday content, Friday content, Saturday content, all 4 days will be absolutely packed with whichever team wins at PSG and Madrid. We'll do loads of analysis on them. We'll do loads of analysis on how we can break them down. That 4 days will be huge. So if we beat Fluminense, expect daily content, multiple levels, like a video, like probably 1 or 2 videos a day and a stream a day. So expect a lot of content to come from that. We spoke about it in several other streams, Rayan. And it is something we could see a bit more next season, yeah. Do you think wingers are being wasted? Depends which system. I think some, they're more platform-based. Some are more... some it is made for them to thrive, so it just depends. A lot of comments coming in. I'm going to really quickly sort of zoom past these ones because I don't want to go too heavily into the PSG talk because a few people sort of saying against, like, Will was dreading PSG. Kay saying PSG is so good. Let them have the ball and they punish you. Try to control them. Very dangerous on the counter. Very true. Does Maresca not have some sort of zonal defending in his locker? That's something we'd have to see. This puts Chelsea out there. It does. It does, Rich. Right, we're going to end it there. Very last question of the stream. I just want everybody in the chat to give me your score predictions. Everybody give me your score predictions. We're going to end it on that. Drop a like if you haven't already whilst you're leaving your score predictions. Have we hit 100? 99. Is there one person in here that hasn't hit the like button and we can hit 100 just before we end? Last few things. Score predictions in the chat and one more like. Who hasn't liked? 2-1 Reese, 3-1 Kelly, 3-0 Chelsea. I'm assuming these are both Chelsea wins. 2-1, so I'm assuming again that's Chelsea. 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, 2-0. A lot of confidence. The first non-win is a 1-1 Chelsea by pens from George. Vinny with a 2-0. 3-1 to Chelsea, 3-1 to Chelsea, 1-0. So a little bit more passive. Big up everyone from Will. 2-0, 1-0. I'm going to go 2-1 to Chelsea. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I expect a bit more of match fixing. Well, I don't think it'll be match fixing, but 2-2. You never know. We got 101 likes. We did it. The people that hadn't liked did drop a like. So, as always, thank you so much for the support. Keep an eye out because there is a tactics video dropping on the channel later today. Again, every single like on those videos, every single comment, even if it's just to help boost the algorithm. If you haven't watched the Noni Madueke video, I'd also really appreciate if you go and watch that. Drop a like on that. Drop a comment on that. Just let me know your thoughts on Madueke in general. Like I say, every bit of support means the world to me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll be back with a video later today and then possibly another stream tomorrow as well with the game. Up the Chelsea, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.